All right, hello everybody. First of all, thank you so much for hanging in there and being a little bit patient with me today. We're having some weather here in the Midwest, and so I'll tell you a quick story. So we have a 17-year-old, we have a 20-year-old, a 17-year-old, and we have a 3-year-old. And the interesting thing was we loaned our 17-year-old our family vehicle because his vehicle was needing some work done. And unfortunately, it just he totaled it. So I'm not saying it was his fault, kind of his fault. I mean, mostly his fault. But anyway, so we have to go out and find a new car, and we went to this dealership. It's a little bit of a drive, a little over an hour away, and we hit some weather going down and back, and so anyway, that was the reason for the delay. So thank you all so very much for your patience today, and certainly your grace. So I'm going to try to get this thing up on the screen here. If you give me a hot second, I just got to move my stuff around. And if you have not already told us where you're from and what line of work that you're in, please do that. I have not literally have had a chance to look at anything at all here. So let's see who we've got that are showing up and who have been incredibly patient. First of all, um, let's give a quick thank you for Michelle. She is super helpful for me, and I couldn't thank her enough. So thank you for Michelle for coming on and letting everybody know that we did not forget about them. So, all right, so that is so Brett is saying thank you. RJ is saying all good. Lauren saying no problem. Thank you. Okay, thank you guys for your grace. Truly, Sheila, thank you so very much. Okay. Yep. That is Michelle. So thank you again. Nope, has not been canceled, Mary. We are here. We are live. And all right. Just a couple other folks waiting on the main man himself. All right. Yeah, we're here. All right. Thanks so much. All right, life happens. Thank you so very much, everybody. All right, so we're going to get right into this. I've got a lot of new material on this one that I have not covered before. So Brett is from Tavistock, Devon, England. Oh, Brett, it's late there. All right, well, thank you for sticking around. I really appreciate that. You're an IT design, print, and telecoms company. Name is ABC Service. Okay, very good. Mary is from Portland, Oregon, retail boutique. Welcome. It sounds like you're kind of having the winter that we're having as well. Michelle is saying for sure. You are again. You are most appreciated, Michelle. Thank you so very much for what you do for strategic boardroom. Patrick is Charlotte, graphic design in UI or UX design. Excellent, very good. All right. Well, thank you so very much for hanging in there and being a little patient. Let me go ahead and share my screen because we do have a lot to cover, and there is a little bit of new material that I have put on that I put in this one, and I've taught this one a couple of different ways, and I wanted to show you some marketing, some of the marketing faux pas that I have done, and not necessarily faux pas. That's actually wrong for me to call them that. They were marketing. They were really marketing tests, because really truly marketing it's about a lot of testing, and it's about getting it wrong a lot more than getting it right. But when you get it right, you get it really right. And that's so you gotta fail, and you gotta fail fast when it comes to marketing. And that's probably the biggest lesson that I could pass along is when you're failing, don't let it be this massive failure. Don't put all your eggs in one basket when it comes to marketing. But when you find a winner and you see that it's winning, that's when you pour the gas on. That's when they pour the fuel on. So that's probably the biggest thing that I wanted to say. So you are Nikki Seth is in San Francisco. You are the founder, and Sheila, you're in, I'm assuming, Raleigh, Durham. Does that make sense? All right, and you are a founder. I'm not sure a founder of what, but oh, Nikki's asking founder of what? or sorry, Brett is asking founder of what? Yeah. So we're just kind of, the reason I'm asking these questions is in terms of what type of business that you guys are specifically in is why that I can make this relevant to you. So I just wanted that's why I'm asking the question. But if you don't want to share, that's totally fine too. Are you going to record and share the recording? Yes, Mohammed. Thank you for asking. So I don't know if you've been on with this before, but if you have registered through this call through Eventbrite, we have your email address. We will be sending you the replay. If you are watching this on a different format, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, you will you can watch it there, but we won't be sending you the replay that way. But if you have signed up through Eventbrite, you'll get it that way. Edna is saying travel, and you are in software as a service. That's what Nikita is saying. She's in SaaS. Lauren, hello. I'm joining from Chicago, owner of an aging life care management company as a 20-year medical social worker. Lauren, I feel like we've met before. That sounds very familiar to me. So welcome back. I think I've got that right. Vladimir Maldonado, founder of an operations management consulting company. Excellent. Welcome. And in Lexington, South Carolina. Excellent. Very good. Well, thank you all for showing up and being here and being super patient with me. So let's get to it. Just one quick housekeeping thing I'm going to ask you folks. First of all, keep the questions coming. And that is, and keep the comments burning up. I love that you guys are connecting with one another. I think that's fantastic. Here's the interesting thing though. I just want to make sure if you have questions, go ahead and type them in the comment section. Just make sure that the question is fully developed. Don't just say, well, what does that mean? And I've talked for another 4 minutes and I'm like, well, which that are you talking about? So make sure your question is fully developed, and try to keep it truncated as much as possible just so I can understand, and we'll keep things rolling. But the other thing is, please try not to multitask. Do your very best not to multitask during this session, because I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to learn as much as you possibly can. And when you're distracted, it's kind of hard to do that. So I just wanted to make sure I throw that out there. Lauren said, yes, I joined a session last week. Thank you for hosting and offering this education. Lauren, this is actually my jam. I love doing this stuff. And I will tell you something, when you really want to learn something, try teaching it. And I have been teaching and doing this sort of stuff around strategy and top-down approaches to business for close to 15 years now. And I wrote my first book back in 2017. I wrote it in 2016, published my first book in 2017. I've since written and published 7 additional books on top of that. So I published 8 books. I'm working on my 9th book now, called Leader Boss. I'll talk about that perhaps another time, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand, like, again, that this is what it does. This is the sort of thing that really fills my cup. And we're really going to get into the marketing side of things, which is around the 4 core functions of business: lead generation, sales, operations, and accounting. And it all starts and falls with lead generation. So your first job of marketing is to make sure that you're creating trust with your client avatar, with the ideal person or persons that you are wanting to work with. Because if you are not getting their trust, and you're not able to create that trust with them, it won't matter how much they feel that product or service might actually solve their problem. They're not going to buy from you. They either don't trust the product, they don't trust your company, or they don't trust you. And none of those things bode well for selling. So that is really the job of the marketers, to connect what's going on in the market with that individual, and that's what the whole job is of the ad or of your marketing. So that is really it. So I want you to think the fastest way to do that, the fastest way to create trust with your avatar, is to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, to demonstrate competence. And yes, but it all rises and falls, of course, on character. We'll talk about that when we look at trust, not just trust triggers, but also the 7 levels of trust, seven areas around trust. But that's really the fastest ways to demonstrate that you know what you're talking about. Show them a problem, and then show them how your solution, how your product or service is the solution to that problem. That's the fastest way to help build and create trust. So I want you to think about that. How can you demonstrate competence to your avatar? And when you've got, let me just make this quick point, is the market judges you by your samples. The market judges you by what you give away, right? What you give away for free, but the market judges you by your demonstration. So when you start thinking about how you can do this, again, sometimes you just have to walk them through what it is what your product or service is able to do. I remember an old ad, and I remember this so well because I believe, and I'm 99% certain it was a Lexus commercial, and there was a group of guys with the drumsticks. Okay, and this was played in the United States, and it was the guys with a bunch of drumsticks, and they were basically hitting these pieces of metal, right? And it sounded like kind of like an orchestra, basically, but it was like literally 100 people hitting these pieces of tin, and it sounded like cymbals, right? Because they were hitting these things. Well, at the very end, what they talked about was how quiet the Lexus was, because it was the layers of metal in the car were sandwiched by rubber, some sort of latex, and then metal, and then latex, right? So it was rubber, and then metal, and then rubber. And that is what made the car so quiet. So at the very end, all of the other ones that were hitting the basically the tin stopped drumming, and they were hitting this piece of metal that had rubber and metal and rubber on it, right? You might remember that commercial. Let me know if you remember that commercial. And all you could hear was tap, 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 tap. And it wasn't making that cymbal sound. And I remembered that. I was like, oh my gosh, that is a demonstration that was so profound for me. And I was like 11, right? It's like I wasn't even a car buyer, but I remembered that so well because Lexus was so ahead of its time in driver comfort and driver safety. There was another Lexus commercial where they demonstrated. So if you remember that commercial, let me know. But there was another Lexus commercial where it had this car, this Lexus, that was parked on a frozen lake. I remember this because what they did was they stomped down on the gas, and of course the wheels spun. And then they hit the driver traction control, which was a new feature. And they stomped on the gas, and instead of the car spinning, it spun a little, but then it gripped, and then it gripped, and then it gripped, and then the car, of course, started moving. That was another demonstration. So that created a lot of trust in the market when they were doing those sorts of demonstrations in their advertising. So I want you to think about how those demonstrations really meant a great deal to their buying audience. And if you remember any of those commercials, please let me know. Of course, I'm also 53. So, I was a child of the 80s, and we grew up on our sitcoms and the commercials in between those sitcoms. So anyway, so how do we create trust? I want you to look at the 7 areas of trust. And the first 2, competence and character, these are really, really important, because if you cannot demonstrate that you know what you're talking about, and if you're not going to demonstrate good character, okay, that's going to be really an uphill battle for every area of trust that you have. And I would tell you that these 2, and this is truly my opinion, but I really feel that competence and character are 2 trees that share the same root system. They are 2 independent trees, but they share the same root system. And the reason for that is because, again, if character dies, competence really isn't going to matter. If competence isn't there, character only takes you so far. So these 2 things right here, every other aspect of trust are the fruits of these 2. Some of them are a little bit more competence-based. Some of them are a little bit more character-based. But I'm just telling you, and some of them actually kind of overlap into both. But I'm just telling you that competence, demonstrating that you know what you know, and especially for sales, especially if you're a leader, and this is not really our leadership course, but if you're a leader, you have to show and demonstrate competence in more than one area. A lot of times it's multiple areas, especially if you're going to be effective as a leader. Character, it all rises and falls on your character. If you're gonna, let's say for those of you, you do your own marketing, you do your own sourcing, you do your own lead generation. If you show up, for example, on let's say at a networking event, right? And you get totally rip-roaring drunk while you're there, and you're a married person, and you start hitting on other people, and making advances towards them, right? That's demonstrating a pretty sour character, right? Well, it doesn't matter what you know at that point in time. There's much fewer people, if anyone, is going to want to do business with you, right? Because it's demonstrating lack of character. So these are the sorts of things that I'm just showing. And again, so if you're trying to build trust quickly, demonstrate lots of competence, and of course, demonstrate good character. If you want to destroy trust with someone else, start to demonstrate lack of character. That's the fastest way to destroy trust. So let's look at the other areas: caring, confidence, commitment, communication, and consistency. These are pretty straightforward, but again, we've all heard about caring. People don't care what you know until they know how much you care. That is so very true, and that's got a lot to do with character. Confidence, trust. How much confidence would you have in me if I kind of came on here and said, well, I don't really know so much about marketing, but I'll talk to you about a couple things, and maybe it might make a big difference for you. That's not very confident, right? Demonstrating that confidence builds trust. And unfortunately, there's a lot of con men who really run that confidence game because they can just say whatever they want, but they say it so confidently and with such conviction, it creates trust, right? So think about that. Commitment. What is your level of commitment to demonstrate that trust? Again, we're talking about this in the aspect of marketing. And I know this sounds super like, what does this have to do with marketing? It has everything to do with marketing. Because if they can't trust you, you might be weak in one of these 7 areas, and they're not going to trust you, and you will never know why. So it's really important that you stop and think about this for just a second and go, wait a minute, how am I demonstrating commitment, right? If I was saying, well, and when it comes to commitment, several of you have businesses of your own, right? And we've got, for example, Sheila, she's saying that she's a founder of a media company. We got Nikita, Brent saying thank you. Okay, sorry. Okay, so these were all comments from before, but if let's say for argument's sake, I've got a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of small business owners that follow me. And when I ask them what they do, a lot of times they're going to say, well, I do, and I'm being a little facetious here, but they'll say, well, I have a marketing company and I also do laptop repair. You're like, okay, what does one have anything at all to do with the other? If I've got, say, like a $5,000 laptop, okay, and I'm going to trust my $5,000 laptop to someone who does marketing, air quotes, and also does laptop repair, I'm going to be like, I don't know, right? Would you go to a heart surgeon that does heart surgery and can refresh your mulch on the weekend? Right? That doesn't make any sense, right? So how committed are you demonstrating how you're committed to your product or service? That matters. That's a commitment trust. Communication trust, how well do they communicate? Not just how well they are spoken. That matters, right? Are they dropping a lot of profanity? Because that can be a communication problem. Or do they not communicate often enough? That can be problematic. How about consistency trust? Consistency trust, again, how consistent are you showing up with all these different areas? Again, how consistent are you in creating trust? Are you following up consistently? Are you showing up consistently? Are you doing the things that you're supposed to be doing consistently? So all of these aspects of trust are really, really important. And you need to be demonstrating those areas of trust in your marketing. So we're going to get into the agenda here in just a hot second. And this comes down to seeking knowledge to understand versus seeking knowledge to take action. So again, by the end of this, I want you to think about, well, yes, that is something I'm absolutely going to take action on, and versus, hey, that was great. Thanks so much. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes. That's fine. But what are you going to take action on? That's what I want to know at the end. Here's the thing. Once you have taken whatever it is that you're going to take action on, you have to be committed to that. You have to dial all the way into that, because here's the reality. When it comes to lead generation, when it comes to marketing, specifically with lead generation, you have to have, you can have the best, most efficient business, right? You could be an absolute paragon of virtue. You could have your sales techniques so dialed in, you could sell ice to Eskimos and voting booths to Castro. And the reality is you could still starve. And that's the truth. There's just no getting around that. When I wrote this book, this is my very first book called The Time Wealthy Investor. And it's actually out of print now. But this was the first book that I wrote. It's about a 280-page book. And it's a book written for mom and pop landlords who really want to learn how to manage their properties better and not spend all their time doing it. And I've since rewritten that. There's a Time Wealthy Investor 2.0, which is the more updated version of this. But the thing was, I took forever to write this thing. It took like 18 months to write it, another couple of months to get it all edited and the book designed and the whole thing. And I was like, I mean, it's a good book. I'm not saying it's a good book because I wrote it. This is feedback from other people who read the book subsequently and told me it was a really good book. And I was like, okay. And I put it up on Amazon and I was like, oh my gosh, this was amazing. Like I published it like with the attitude of, you're welcome, world. Here's my book. You're welcome. That's the attitude that I took when I published this first book. And my book sales was $0 after 3 weeks. I had sold nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought. The thing was, again, I did no marketing. I did none whatsoever. And I was like, okay, it doesn't matter how good the book was. I may as well have been hollering it inside of a closet because no one knew about the book. So I created a brand, and I had the brand already kind of going in my mind. I was like, okay, well, let me create this website. I have this brand. Then I started learning all about funnels and ClickFunnels and Russell Brunson and read all the books. And I was posting and marketing and emailing and cajoling and putting a lot of effort into selling the book. And I paid for Amazon ads. I paid for Facebook ads. I paid for Google ads. And my volume increased tremendously. And I spent 3 months, 90 days, doing nothing but trying to sell these darn books. And from all that effort, I went from $0 in sales to $95.64. I was so frustrated. I was so ready to give up. I had 2 years to write and publish this book, no sales, another 90 funnels. I felt like the only people that were making money were the marketing people, right? So that was what was really frustrating, and only have 12 sales. And keep in mind, this is 12 sales. This isn't profit. This is gross sales. I was basically selling the book at break even just to try to get some traction. How many of you would have felt discouraged at this point? Like, this is this is like, this is my, are you kidding me photo, right? Why didn't they buy the books? Because I was trying to sell them information when what they wanted was transformation. I was trying to sell them books when what they wanted was to make their life better. Okay, I was trying to sell the trip, not the vacation. And that's a big difference. So fundamentally, also, they didn't trust me. They didn't trust that I knew what I was talking about. Plus, the other side of it, of the equation, was maybe they didn't trust themselves to buy yet another book that would probably sit on their shelf. How many of you have bought books? And again, if I had 3 hands, I'd put them all up. How many of you have bought books that you never read? Right? So comes a personal trust factor that they didn't trust themselves to buy another book that they probably wouldn't read. Okay? So, as that stack of shame is just, glaring at them and looking at them over and over, right? So they didn't trust themselves to implement, so they didn't buy it. I had done very little to demonstrate or create trust with the avatar. And again, those 7 elements of trust is what we talked about. I had done none of that. I hadn't really, and not only that, we're going to be talking about desire, but I hadn't really addressed the type of traffic that they were. And we'll talk about that here in just a second. But this is what my monthly revenues look like. I mean, eventually I did start making some money, and it really wasn't from any book revenues, right? I went from that first, roughly 2018, I was making just maybe $1,000 a month at most. I had some coaching clients, and then I went to about $8,000 a month. And of course, by the time on the other side of COVID, I was making about $17,000 a month. So I was doing much, much better, but it was not, it took me a while to figure out how to do this. So the main thing, I just want to encourage you, and this is not to impress you or anything like that. That's not why I'm showing you this number. I'm showing you that if you keep learning, you allow the market to teach you what it's saying. The market is very clear. It's like, nope, we do not like that. Nope, we do not like that. Oh, but we kind of like that. Really? So again, one of the things is that even though people didn't really necessarily want to buy the books, they did want to buy me. They wanted what I had to teach them. And that was what the important thing was. So someone is asking, what do you mean by avatar in your references? Your avatar is the ideal person you want to work with. We're going to get to that in just a second, but your ideal client avatar is specifically who and ideally you want to work with. And it's important that you be specific. That's a really good question. We are going to come back to that. So thank you. Ripa, thank you very much. Okay. So let's get to the agenda. The agenda is, first and foremost, we're going to be talking about the systems of a business. We're not going to get super granular in the systems component just because that's generally more for some other aspect of business, but it is going to be important for us to bring that up so you understand the context. Next is the psychology of business, and we'll talk about individual and organizational psychology and buying psychology. And then we're going to get to the 4 core functions, which have to be true in every single business. And then we're going to get to the marketing, the actual magic of marketing, and how marketing ties all together in all of this. and then we're going to give you away some resources. So everything that I'm going to be talking about here, I have written about in this book that's over my shoulder, and the one that's on the screen right now is The Time Wealthy Advantage. That's my 8th book. If you want to buy it, you can get a copy of it on Amazon. It's probably the best way for you to order it if you're outside the United States. If you're inside the United States and you'd like that and access to some other bonuses, and I can sign it for you, just go to strategicboardroom.com and you can buy it there. Again, I'm not here to promote the book. I just want to make sure you understand. Many of you want to go deeper on the Viper framework than what I'm offering today, and this is where that this is where that comes from, is that book. All right, so the Viper method is it's an acronym which stands for vision, infrastructure, process, execution, and reporting. So I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through it rather quickly, but I just want you to understand this is a top-down approach to looking at your life and your business. And if you're working for someone else, and I know for some of you, this might be more relevant, if you are a business owner, but it still applies to you, especially if you have a career that you're working. So either way, it works either way. So the vision piece here, the vision has comprised of two key areas, and those two key areas are personal vision and business vision. Personal vision is really what it is that you're trying to accomplish in your life. Like, what's this whole job thing doing for you? Like, where do you want to go? Brett, where do you want to go? Lauren, where do you want to go? Ripa, where do you want to go? Vladimir, where do you want to go in your life, right? Where do you want to go if your life wasn't determined by income generation? If your job description wasn't a life description, what would that be? And I want you to think about this and be really specific. Where do you want to go? You wake up tomorrow with $30 million or 30 million pounds or 30 million euro or whatever. What is that going to look like? And again, okay, fine, go spend 5 million units of something and go buy yourself some nice stuff. But the reality is you're still going to have to be a good steward of money. Otherwise, you're going to run out of money. Okay. So again, where do you want to go? And that's basically what you would want your life to look like if it wasn't defined by income generation. Your business vision, on the other hand, is cool. How are we going to get there? So now you define where you want to go. Now you're going to reverse engineer this business, which is going to take you to where you want to go. Okay. So, Lauren, let's see here. Sorry, can I get a copy of this live video after the call? Because I'm kind of having an unstable network and I'm truly gaining important knowledge. Absolutely, Felix. Yeah, you can. We're going to email those out. So if you signed up through Eventbrite, we will email you a copy of this. So yep. I'm sorry you're having issues with your network. Lauren, I want to continue to help support my community. Very good. And Lauren, what I would invite you to do is get very specific on that. Be much more specific about what it is that you want to do in your life. And here's the thing. And, I have sat in, I don't even know at this point, dozens, perhaps hundreds of seminars and mastermind sessions where I've sat next to people who are legitimately making 6 and 7 figures per month net. And they were miserable. Their lives were chaos. And you know what they were most worried about? Getting an extra comma in their bank account. That was crazy, right? And the reason for that is because they had created a business vision without ever giving any sort of consideration to a personal vision. And why that's important is because when you create a business vision before you create a personal vision, is that you end up creating a life that exists to serve the business. And I'm just telling you that's an empty well that just never gets filled in. So I'm just going to spend another, hot second, just on this personal vision side, but really start to think about what that could look like. Just what are some things that you're looking forward to? What are the relationships in your life that are really important to you? So again, please take a few minutes and just start thinking about that, because we're going to put the fries in the bag on personal vision, and now we're going to talk about business vision. So for those of you, and I will tell you that understanding these 3 elements is going to make your marketing massively stand out and far more effective. And I'm just telling you this because when people are weak in these 3 areas, they find their marketing wonky and they're trying to hit everybody, and it's disconnected and fragmented at best. So let's look at the 3 C's of business vision. So the 3 C's of business vision are core purpose, core values, and client avatar. So Ripa, you were asking about avatar. We're going to talk about avatar here in just a hot second. So we'll get to the end of that here at the end of the 3 C's. So your core purpose is specifically what business are you in and what problems do you specifically solve? And it's really important that you be as specific as you possibly can be. And I'm talking about the core purpose, try, I mean, I know there's probably lots of ancillary things that you can do, but realistically, asking, what business are you specifically in? What problems do you specifically solve? This is really important for you to start to think about this so you can dial in and know what your product and services really do. And I know that there's lots of businesses who do lots of different things. Yeah, but what's the core purpose? What's the core purpose, right? Think about that. So, if you have a car dealership, can you do car repairs? Well, yeah, but your core purpose is probably to sell cars, right? Makes sense. I mean, can you do alignments? Sure, but it's probably more to sell new vehicles, not necessarily service old vehicles. Because I mean, could you do both? Sure, but what again is the core purpose of the business?